just too little.
We get your name and your information, and you do a name tag. We'll get you a signed copy of Jean's book and send you on in to sit down.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nueu. I'm a refugee from Burma. I'm here for support for women, and I have 3 kids. I would love to raise my children for understand and respect mother and working for human rights and women's rights issue. So I'm really proud that I'll teach my children and my communities and people throughout the world that respect people and respect women.
Yeah, I have your signed copy.
How are you?
Nice to see you.
You too.
As usual.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
I feel like we've been now the midwives for many of us for this book that you all have. Jean Shinoda Bolen is a Jungian analyst, psychiatrist, author, and activist, a distinguished life fellow of the American Psychiatric Association and former clinical professor of psychiatry at the University of California, San Francisco. She is internationally known speaker and the author of 12 influential books in over 80 foreign translations, beginning with The Tao of Psychology, Goddess in Every Woman, Gods in Every Man. Her last 4 books, including Urgent Message from Mother, Gather the Women, Save the World, and Like a Tree, How Trees, Women, and Tree People Can Save the Planet, bring together the inner world of archetypes and symbols with activism in the world. Everywhere I have ever traveled, people with Jean, they've run up and said, "You changed my life. You totally changed my life." So here's the woman who has not only changed so many people's lives, she's changing the UN. And here's the birth of her next.
I say to people, my hobby is trying to change the world, and it's a great hobby.
Yeah.
I wrote in this book, which I wrote for you, for the activists with heart, for those who have stepped up to the plate to make a difference, that there are 3 criteria that fit it. That when you are called to make a difference, it may be to be an activist in your own family, it may be in the UN, it may be on the street, but when you have a calling, a mission, what I call an assignment, that has you step up to take on a creative endeavor that is heart motivated, then, like Joseph Campbell talks about finding your personal myth, that part of your life is part of your personal myth. And it usually, to fit that definition, is meaningful to you. Other people might think you're a kook for it, but it is meaningful for you because of who you are and what you have experienced and what your heart says about silence is consent and somebody has to do it, really. And it's you. But it's meaningful. And then I always put in that it's fun. And activism, when you are doing it from the heart, is fun. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's very discouraging. But overall, it's fun because you get to hang out with people like you in this room. You are doing it with people who have values like your own, which is not always how it is in the world of ordinary folks. Because when you have a calling to do something, and you find other people are moving in the same direction, then it's fun to have them. And if you also adopt the notion that every activist should have a circle that watches your back, that prays for you, that knows when you are really going up to do something majorly that could make a difference, and you know that your circle is behind you. Some of them are with you, as I have. This is my experience. There are those in this room that are part of the Millionth Circle. we have been together online, and about once a year we gather in a circle. We call it a deepening gathering. And we have been doing this now we're going on to the 11th year. And sometimes all of us have some degree of activism during some part of our lives, and other times we are just dealing with life, because if you know anyone for 10 years, you know that there's going to be very heavy things that come down in the lives of, say, 20 women who are part of that circle, and that's been part of our experience. So we have women in the circle, and women do circles easier than men. There's something about the form that comes naturally. There's something about the form in which sharing what's going on in your life really starts to be shared experiences in which you look across the circle. And this was the experience of the women's movement consciousness raising groups, that it was just women talking to each other that changed the world for American women and then rippled out to the world. But what women did was share what was meaningful and tell the truth of their lives. And what you saw were role models who were like you. Because when you meet each other in a persona kind of way, you don't realize what that woman has actually been through. Because you cannot come into this life and get through it without your share of suffering. And if your share of suffering has turned you into this beautiful person who has a big heart and who actually goes out of her way to help other people, then this is very, very impressive as a role model. So the circle, I have been feeling a missionary for circles, seeding circles, with the book, the Millionth Circle is like a seed packet, sort of a how-to. But more than that, it touched on the notion of the metaphor from the 100th monkey. The Millionth Circle is a metaphoric circle that when it forms, critical mass tipping point is reached. And what it might mean for that tipping point, for the feminine, with a model being a circle with a spiritual center, what that might mean when the Millionth Circle is formed, tilting the world to being balanced, ending patriarchy, which would not be a bad thing, how pathological patriarchy is. So, the sense of assignment, is it meaningful? Will it be fun? And the other reason it's fun is because it uses you. It's fun to get so involved in wanting to bring out an idea further, as I did at the last CSW. At the last CSW, several things happened in the year since. One of the major things that happened is that the Secretary General and the President of the General Assembly on International Women's Day issued their joint statement supporting the convening of a global conference for women and asking only of the General Assembly members that they get a resolution, a simple majority resolution that says we would like that the UN is going to convene a global women's conference. That's all. It didn't happen. And when it didn't happen, when it seemed like there was not enough political will for such a thing to happen, that the idea was not strong enough, one of my calls was to write this little book. So I wrote this little book, and then because it was, I think because when you do something that grows out of your heart and you are in right timing, there's something about the synchronistic response that the universe seems to cooperate and help your mission to happen. So that my publisher, I talked to them about it and got from them that they would, if I would write it very fast, which I really had to do, I had to write it very fast, they would put it into production very fast, and I would have 2,000 copies available to give away at this CSW. And that's the beginning of this gifting of this book, because this idea should multiply. And the other thing is that it all happened, including this beautiful cover. The cover that came And when the book came, and I saw the book for the first time, the author copies come when they come. They could come anytime. They happened to come on Inauguration Day, Martin Luther King Day. And how symbolic is that? How symbolic to have a President of the United States, Obama, on Martin Luther King Day, inaugurated for his second term. And the idea of having, and you know, nobody would have dreamed that we would have had an American president who was black a decade before. No one would have dreamt that. And this really is what this little book is about. It is to touch on the desire and the reasons for having such a book, idea in the book. The idea that everything that ails this planet could be helped if women were empowered and equal and were present in the making of decisions that affected everything from what we do with our food to how we educate our children to whether we spend our budget on weapons or on other things. We all know that, but we know that it won't happen unless women really are empowered. And what if women were empowered and also drew on spiritual resources? Because spirituality unites us and religions divide us. And if we aren't doing theology, if we are just being with each other and dropping into that quiet place that we meet each other and tap into the invisible world and to feel the sense of the feminine principle as well as the masculine, to have a sacred feminine, as well as what we have with patriarchy is one-sided everything, including divinity. So this is about circles, seating circles, and about a Fifth Women's World Conference. And the point of picking up an assignment, is it meaningful? Will it be fun? And finally, is it motivated by love? Not by resentment or vengeance or the kinds of energies that make the soul of the person unpeaceful and also shrink who we are. It is a capacity to work from that place of compassion and vision that this assignment came into being, and that when it came on when it arrived as an author copy, I was just thrilled, because you write a book and you even see pictures of the cover, and then when one arrives, it becomes real. It's like you know you're pregnant for 9 months. So when the baby comes, you really, really know that she arrived, as I called this book. She arrived, and I thought she was beautiful. And so every one of you has gotten a book, and you will also be invited to take a bag of them to give away. Wow. And to give away in conversation, especially to women who are not always on Amazon.com. And maybe to feel because you were given it, you'll give it other books away too, so that the word ripples out. Rippling out is one of the major ideas behind circles, because if you have a circle of 6 people in them, for example, if every one of the 6 tells others, and it goes on and on, there was this 3 to the 19th power that I didn't include in the book, but would have if I had remembered it. But 3 to the 19th power is a simple idea of geometrical progression, that if 3 women talk about something each to 3 other women, that's 9. If those 9 talk to 3 more, that's 27. If those 27 talk to 3 more, it is 81, and then it's 273, and in 19 steps it reaches 1,162,000,000
Really?
women. And so with that in mind, of talking about why it is, and most people say, what can we do? But this is to work on the UN itself. We, in many ways, represent the UN. because the UN is made up of 193 member states, and we all come from one of those member states. And those member states are potentially influenced by us. And the thing that makes a huge difference on anything that matters to women is political will. And that's one of the major reasons for having a fifth World Conference. Is the first one in the 21st century. Imagine having a world conference that strikes the imagination and the technology that we have. Imagine a conference if Beijing in 1995, without much internet at all, had as much interest as it did. Imagine what it would be like now, not only with internet technologies, but the capacity for any group of women anywhere to organize themselves into having a local conference simultaneously and tapping into the large one. Imagine having NGOs send members of their NGOs to the international, to the global, to the Fifth Women's World Conference. And there be communication from the people who go back home, back to the village, back to the circle, back to the community, because we can do it with smartphones these days. Imagine the capacity of people in NGOs viewing going to such an event, much as athletes talk about going to the Olympics. It's a big thing to go. It will change you to go if you represent your NGO, and if it captures the imagination of men and women who have the potential to fund what sometimes are called fellowships, maybe we could call them sisterships, to name NGO from all over the world that this was a chosen person who has like the equivalent of a scholarship, recognizing what was done by this NGO and by this individual, often a youngish one, who comes as a designated person to the International Fifth Women's World Conference on Women, representing her organization. And the capacity to stay in touch, to be in touch before, like this particular conference, there are numbers in this room who have been in touch with each other prior to coming here, have had free conference calls together, have met each other for the first time in person here, and already have a sense of sisterhood and similar cause and forward movement. And then meeting at a conference and then going back home again and staying in touch. The possibility of getting to that tipping point that changes the world would be accelerated by having a 5WCW.